The project I'm doing for Queensland Cultural Center is called the Bodhi Tree Project. There are two inspirations of this project, and both are historical. One is my own personal history, and the other one is more of a greater Chinese and Indian history. My own personal connection with this project was several years ago. There was a great earthquake in Taiwan that several thousand people died. And the epicenter was in this village called Puli, which was where my grandparents came from. My grandfather was the founder of the Puli school. Of course, my grandfather is no longer alive. When I went back to the school, the only thing that were standing were the trees. All the buildings were destroyed during the earthquake, and luckily the children were not there because it happened during at night. So they asked me as an artist to go back and do a project for the village. And I proposed to plant a Bodhi tree there for, in a dialogue with what my grandfather did, but also to create a sense of harmony with a Bodhi tree. However, that project didn't come about. There are just so many different things happening, and it just remained as an idea. When Queensland Cultural Center asked me to propose a public art project, I thought this would be a great place to do, because I'm moving something, or I'm inviting something from a very different culture into a continent and into a very different space and time, meaning Australia. The original Bodhi tree that Buddha was sitting under when he was enlightened is no longer in existence. However, the second generation of that tree is still alive in Sri Lanka. So what I did is I worked with the Queensland Buddhists and also the Sri Lankan Buddhist community to get an actual sapling from this tree and invite that tree into Queensland. So when people look at the tree, they'll just see it as a very beautiful Bodhi tree. But for many adults, they'll realize this is the descendant of the actual tree that Buddha was sitting under when he was enlightened. Hopefully this gesture will bring out the beauty and the kindness within each one of us when we realize someone so wonderful and so great 2,500 years ago was sitting underneath a tree like this and became a Buddha. I realized this tree, the Bodhi Tree Project, is quite different from what most people think of as public art. Public art does not have to be just a physical thing in the public. It could have a very different realm in the public, meaning the psychological part of the public or sociological part of the public. So that's what new genre of public art is all about. It's not about the physical thing of it, but it's more about how this event or this thing that the public who lives around this event, how it affects their life, mentally and socially speaking. So with the Bodhi Tree Project, I now planted a tree, which again is different from a metal object, because when you think of a metal object or an object in the public, often they're quite vulnerable to natural elements. But this one actually grows from the natural element, meaning the rain, the wind, and it nourishes it. This tree is going to have 4,000 years old life. I wonder if the Queensland Cultural Center will still be there 4,000 years later. So it puts us in a very humble space relative to this tree. This is what we call a public art. And everything is very open. And I guess what our assignment is to learn from this tree and how our life evolves around this tree and how we change by the existing of this tree. I was very fortunate to be a part of the 1999 Asia Pacific Triennial. And this is my second time to do a project, not for the Asia Pacific Triennial, but for Queensland Art Gallery and Queensland Gallery of Modern Art. I feel the Bodhi Tree Project is still very strongly connected to the Asia Pacific part of my own identity, but also of the history of and the direction of the Queensland Art Gallery. I myself living in New York, but I was born and raised in Taiwan. And now using this project, not only addressing my own Taiwanese and Chinese history, but also with a greater history, which is Buddhism, that is very much a part of Asia Pacific culture and civilizations. So for me to go to Sri Lanka, which is a place which I'm not very familiar with, and to invite something that, a living thing from that particular historical site into Queensland, which is a continent that is very receptive of a project like this, which I'm very grateful. Mainly, I think because of the new arrivals of these Asia Pacific residents in this part of the world. So I think and I hope this project would make some sense to the people who live around this area, and also for the gallery who very kindly invited me to do this project.